Welcome to the March 16th edition of the PFF Forecast. We thought about doing this on day after St. Patrick's Day, but that would not have been a good look. I heard you party pretty hard.
Well, St. Patrick's Day is my wife's birthday.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, actually, somebody today was asking if free agency started a week earlier, and I said no, actually, because last year we took George out for his birthday the week before his birthday.
and we're not going to talk about that on the podcast. We are going to talk about the best and worst free agency signings. There's some really interesting stuff that's gone on. We haven't talked about Brady yet, and we're going to talk about team futures in the context of what's going to happen with Watson, Mayfield, what has happened with Brady. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. There's a few draft futures that my main man Eric over here has found some value on, and we may or may not have an appearance from Ballsack or just whack. Let's rock. The funniest thing is that the Brady conversation, you know, the fact that he blew up the internet happened like 30 minutes after we recorded our last podcast. So it feels like we've talked about it just because everyone's beaten it into the ground like a dead horse here. But we actually haven't. And I do think my initial reaction, I'll save this for later. We're going to talk futures. Let's talk best signings first. Best free agency signings.
Yeah, so if you want to go to pff.com, we have a free agent tracker. We have a free agent grader. And I just go through and make sure that like we don't have too many like above averages. Like I just am looking at like the distributions. But there was one interesting one because I agree with this at first blush as an elite signing. But I do want to pull back a little bit and maybe ask if the Chargers are going to get their money's worth here. J.C. Jackson, 5 years, 82 million, 40 million guaranteed. Now, it's not 20 million a year. It's not resetting the market for corners, I don't believe. But J.C. Jackson, there's enough kind of like to explain away some of his success in New England, isn't there? Because like when you look at like the tracking data or something, you know, Gilmore was manning more territory, but he was so good at it that teams were throwing into smaller areas to J.C. Jackson, which obviously was going to make him more successful. His statistics. Last year, no Gilmore, but you actually look at the New England passing games that they faced. So if you look like, you're talking about the Jets twice. You're talking about the Miami Dolphins twice. You're looking at a Saints team with Jameis Winston, a Houston Texans team, the Panthers, the Browns when Baker Mayfield was struggling, the Falcons when Matt Ryan without Cordero Patterson. So like I look at it and say, okay, what is the chance that J.C. Jackson is as good as this contract with the Chargers? And I actually think, even though I think he's a great player, I think that maybe that signing ends up not necessarily being as impactful as the money states. So
there's two things. The first is you can basically just look at sentiment on Twitter, and when everyone is overwhelmingly positive about something, there should be a little bit of red flag. I'll give you an example of that, by the way, that has just been overwhelmingly proven. Remember when Khalil Mack got traded to the Bears?
Yeah.
Find one person on Twitter that didn't think that was the greatest, trade in history for the Bears, and obviously it was not. So everyone overwhelmingly positive about the Chargers and about the Jackson signing. It's interesting because his best PFF grade came last year, and actually up until last year it had grades in the high 60s, and you could have made the argument that, oh yeah, he's playing his data points, his low passer rating when targeted is a function of the fact that he's playing beside Stephon Gilmore, and the grade doesn't really back it up. But now the grade does a much better job, top 10 most valuable corner. The question would be, and I think you pose it well, okay, but he's playing in a scheme that does a great job for corners. We've seen that traditionally. But then I'll come back and I'll say, okay, if you're not playing for Belichick, you're playing for Brandon Staley,
Yeah.
And so my question back to you is, does he need to get the full value out of that contract for it to be a really good signing? Because of exactly what you talked about last week on the show, right?
No, they don't need that's the benefit here. It's like I said this today on another show I was on. It's like when you have a rookie deal quarterback,
you're disgusting.
You are like the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
So like you're a big baseball fan, and I'm a
huge baseball fan.
I'm gonna hit that. Well,
so glad they're back.
You were a big baseball fan. I'm gonna hit a name that you're gonna love.
Okay.
When the Yankees signed Carl Pavano and he was terrible.
Oh my God!
They could like, did it cripple the Yankees franchise?
The odds of Carl Pavano getting mentioned on this here illustrious sport.
He came to my Twins.
You know who will appreciate that? Everyone at the Syndicate will appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
We have knowledgeble listeners.
Yeah. So
Carl Pavano, where did he play before the Yankees?
Was it the Marlins? So my point, and then he went to the Twins, and he was actually the Twins ace, which just shows you the depth of that franchise. But like the Yankees, what did the Yankees do when they signed Carl Pavano or Kevin Brown, and he was freaking terrible? They just
Kevin Brown, by the way, amazing. Yeah. Remember how excited Yankees fans were for that?
What did the Yankees do when they signed a bat? They just signed somebody else.
They just signed someone else. Yeah.
When you have a Justin Herbert on a rookie deal, you can just sign, like, he doesn't, all these guys don't have to hit, right? Mm-hmm. Justin Reed for the Chiefs paying their quarterback on a full deal, he's got to hit. Chandler Jones for the Raiders, when you pay Derek Carr that money, he's got to hit, right? Yeah. And so so my where I'm threading the needle here, and look, J.C. Jackson's statistics. I mean, you look at 307 passes into his coverage in 4 years, 159 completed. That's 52%. 10 touchdowns, 25 picks, 28 pass breakups. He did have 15 penalties his first 2 years. That's obviously an issue. But, like, he doesn't have to be that great. The question is, I don't think he's the Jalen Ramsey of this defense. And I don't think Asante Samuel Jr. is the Jalen Ramsey of this defense. I think they're going to have to do something different than what the Rams do with Ramsey. But that's my only worry is, like, if you take an autopsy of the Chargers in 2 years and they don't win a Super Bowl, they don't achieve the glory that you would expect from a team with a great quarterback on a rookie deal, where is the autopsy coming from? I could see it looking back and saying, oh, the J.C. Jackson contract, he was being paid like Stephon Gilmore, but he ended up being, like a Charvarius Ward for your Niners type of player.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm not saying he's going to bust. I'm just saying I like you said, when I look and everybody's universally happy about a signing, I just faded a little bit in my own mind.
The way that it'll be interesting. The autopsy on the Chargers is going to be very interesting, right? They have, in my opinion, on Sunday, before they got Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson, the most talented team in the division, the best division in the NFL now, without Russell Wilson in the NFC West. They now unequivocally have that. And it makes sense because the other two quarterbacks on great teams, Wilson and Mahomes, are being paid a hell of a lot more money, right? Patrick Mahomes is being paid, 8x what Justin Herbert is?
Randy Gregory better freaking perform.
Yes.
Because otherwise,
if not, it's a huge issue. If you had to guess, I was going to ask you what Carl Pavano's career ERA was, but that's less.
I think Carl Pavano's career ERA.
Okay, hold on. If you get within 0.2 of an earned run point, I will buy you. I'll let you buy me one less steak dinner. I'll buy you a drink.
4.33.
Shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me?
I was a stat nerd.
Stop. Fuck you. You looked this up.
No. There's nothing there.
You looked this up before. You knew that Carl Anthony Pavano was going to be
his ERA?
4.39.
Yeah, because he had 1 year. So this is how bad
that's bananas.
He had 1 year with the Twins where he had an ERA of he had a shutout in the last game of the season so that they only lost 99 games.
Yeah.
And his ERA was 3.93 or something barely crossed it. He had another year where it was 3.8 something. But then his year with now they're called the Generals or whatever, the Cleveland Guardians was a 5 ERA.
Yeah,
he was a privilege. That was for sure. He threw some moon balls though. Here's Yeah, see, I don't watch baseball anymore, but I still remember this shit.
What pitch was he known for?
A sinker. He was a sinker guy. Come on. The Twins were the quintessential pitch to contact team. My graduate school years were MLB.TV in the evenings just to make sure that I wasn't doing math 30 hours a day.
We've talked about way too much baseball.
Okay, so we were going to talk about futures a little bit ago, but what we've seen, and this is significant actually, because I want to bring it back to your question about the AFC West. The Chiefs opened, basically minus 110, minus 120 this offseason to win the West, and that would be their 7th straight AFC West title. They are currently plus 150. This is the first time since Patrick Mahomes, since he was starting, that they've not been favored against the field, right? Like they're underdogs against the field right now.
Yep.
The Broncos are plus, and these are actually different. Shop around because they're different on FanDuel. On FanDuel, the Broncos and the Chargers have equal odds to win the AFC West. On DraftKings, it's not the same. The Broncos are 2-1. The Chargers are plus 275. So there is like a significant gap here.
Yeah,
and
the difference is, I guess FanDuel listens to our podcast.
And like plus 275 is probably where I'd stop betting. Like I have 400. I have plus 350.
You're sharp.
I need the Raiders are 10-1. By the way, we got this this interesting comment on our podcast, basically like all you guys do is going to doubt the Raiders, and all they do is prove you wrong. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
The Raiders have not won the AFC West since 2002.
Also, you were.
I said 10%.
You were the closest thing to getting like a Raiders tattoo last year. I mean, you love the Raiders. I bet the Raiders to win the fucking division.
I bet they're over 6.5 for the limit on like 2 books. Yeah, and we said
the Bear of Antigua was heavy.
They said I said 10%. They're 10-1. That's 9%. Like technically, I should be betting the Raiders right now.
Not everyone in the syndicate is a believer from day one.
True.
And
so
we
what
welcome
do you think of these odds? So do you think that these odds are fair now, or would you still bet LA until they got to the Broncos number?
The Chargers and the Broncos should not have different odds to win the division. I could make a stronger case for the Chargers having better odds than the Broncos. The Broncos have a new head coach, a new quarterback. Okay? Mm-hmm. Those are 2 new things. And by the way, the better quarterback plays in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So like before and I'm trying to think of the reasoning for that. Maybe they're hoping that Von Miller, comes back, but I don't know that that's
not with Randy Gregory coming in. The FanDuel odds are Chiefs plus 120, which is the 45% we were talking about last time. Chargers are plus 260, Broncos are plus 260. And then the Raiders are 10-1. So essentially what FanDuel believes is that the Kansas City Chiefs still have more cachet than the DraftKings odds do. The thing I will say there is the hard part with the Chiefs is that, like, to me, and I could be wrong, but I think this is the year that the Chiefs don't do as much restructuring of deals. Mm-hmm. Like I think they let the thing breathe a little bit so that they don't have to, like, if they restructure Chris Jones, they're going to owe Chris Jones $36 million next year, right? Yep. So, like, at some point, you just have to stop doing this stuff and take a lump every once in a while. And I think that's what Kansas City's doing this year. So, I actually agree with the plus 150 more than I agree with the plus 120. I just don't see what the Broncos. And this is the only thing I'll say about the Broncos with Wilson. Aaron Rodgers in 2018, the last year with McCarthy, average time to throw was like 2.9.
Yep.
2019, it was like 2.8. Last 2 years, the 2 MVP years, 2.6.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has never been below 2.6, and he's mostly been near 3. Nathaniel Hackett and Matt LaFleur got Rodgers to sort of commit to a rhythm offense that made him wonderful.
Way better, yeah.
And if they can get Russell Wilson to commit to a rhythm offense, I think he's got a chance. I think he's got a chance to emerge here. The problem is I don't necessarily think if his ceiling is that of Aaron Rodgers. I still think he's like a step below. And this division is not the NFC North. This division has you don't get to play Detroit. You don't get to play Chicago.
I mean, the autopsy on this in the next 2 years, if I had to put money on it, the things that are most likely to show up are the difference you just talked about, We have a lot of faith in the offensive system in Kansas City. We have a lot of faith in the offensive system that is coming to Denver. You know what I do not have faith in? The offensive system. And I'm going to shout out one of our – we shout out our interns a lot, by the way, members of the syndicate. But our friend Arjun – is it Arjun? Arjun. Who is super talented and does some really cool work. And you can go follow him on Twitter, and I encourage you to do so. He created an app that looked at average depth of target below or over or below expected. So in other words, were these guys more or less aggressive, based on the situation? Justin Herbert has a cannon of an arm. Justin Herbert's expected average depth of target is higher than his actual one. To translate that for everyone out there that's curious, he was being neutered on every play by their offensive system.
Yeah, I think that's and that was one of the things. That was one of the things where we talked about Herbert and Burrow, where we sort of, and again, I don't look, it doesn't matter, right? Who's better, who in our eyes, right? But like one of the reasons I kind of like Burrow was because there were times when I thought he took it. I think he took control of the situation and didn't let a bad coordinator ruin his season. I think I'm going to retreat a little bit on that because, as we talked about in the last podcast, like the Chargers and the Bengals weren't all that different, right? It was like one game better. And, I think the Chargers, if you gave them the same slate of games in the playoffs, might have made the Super Bowl too.
Yep.
So, but I do fear that for Herbert because it's not something that hasn't happened before. At Oregon, Herbert was amazing in the first couple of years, and in the last couple of years, he had people believing he wasn't a first-round pick because the scheme was terrible in Oregon, and he kind of just went along. Again, I don't know what the agency here is tough, but he kind of went along with it, kind of the same way he went along with, and my issue is you'd like the guy to speak up before he has to convert 8 fourth downs on a drive.
Exactly. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference in that the Bengals brought Jamar Chase in to where Joe Burrow could literally be like, fuck it, he's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that with Mike Williams, certainly, but I'm not sure that Herbert has gained that kind of rapport yet with any of those receivers. And if you're going to go out there and overcome the scheme, you got to have a little bit of that. So
let's talk about the worst drafts
before we get there.
Okay.
You mentioned that you can go to PFF and see the best signings. You can see the live tracker, and you can get the deal grader and our free agency rankings. You can get that for 25% off with promo code FORECAST, FORECAST, 25% off. There's so much great free agency coverage on PFF.com. I have not had the time to follow any of this live, and every night I've just spent 5 to 10 minutes on PFF.com, and I know everything I need to know, and it's been fantastic. Not a lot about my Niners, but it's okay. So go check that out and use the 25% off now to get a year-long subscription that takes you all the way through next season. And if you are bettors like all the syndicate are, you'll want to get an elite subscription that gives you all of the betting tools that will only be improving this upcoming season. All right. Other ones.
Yeah. So I think the worst ones.
You want to move right to the worst ones.
Yeah, because here's the thing. There aren't that many. So I'm actually kind of.
No one's winning.
I'm kind of impressed. I'm kind of impressed that I think the league is getting a little smarter. And so there are less signings where I'm just like, holy shit, that was horrible. And there's less signings. And Timo wrote a great article about the draft where he said there aren't steals in the draft, right? Mm-hmm. If the whole league decides that this guy's going to fall 10 picks, he's fallen. That's where he's supposed to go. Whereas there are reaches. And I think free agency is kind of that way. If the marketplace says this guy is this much money, he's not a steal. But there are bad signings, and the few of them that I'll point out to you.
They're all in Jacksonville.
Well, the first one's actually in Chicago because when the Bears traded Khalil Mack, I made a tweet that I said, are they going to waste half of Justin Fields' rookie contract? Mm-hmm. And I got a bunch of blowback because they were like, oh, they're trading Mack so that they can acquire offense, you freaking idiot. And I'm like, okay, well, I hope so. And the first signing they come out and do is 13.5 APY to Larry Ogunjobi, an interior defensive lineman, 26.35 guaranteed. A guy
where
who
does that put him in?
I mean, it's not necessarily like he's obviously not in the,
because it's not anything super crazy, and it's one of those things where you could go, oh yeah, well they have Justin Fields, but here's the point.
It's a top 15 contract at the position. Like,
because here's the point that I wanted to make with these. So the Bears and the Jaguars both have rookie quarterbacks.
Actually, it's a little bit more. It's a top like 12 contract.
Okay, I'm gonna get on my soapbox here for a second. I owe an apology. There's an apology I need to make. Okay. I want to apologize to the New England Patriots and their fans, because last year you guys spent an absurd amount of money on players that I liken to going and shopping at Target, which is a fine store. And I should never have said anything about the Patriots, because the Jaguars have come out. And the Jaguars are out here. The Jaguars are spending real money on fake Rolexes at this point.
Well, it's sort of like
I don't get it. I mean, why are you have a rookie quarterback? Go buy him some good things with the money. They're out there. Go get some good players. And it's not that they've taken bad players, but they're overpaying for players that are not stars. Surround your rookie quarterback with stars, man.
Well, especially if you have
I like
the money
Foye Oluokun as much as the next guy. I loved him coming out of Yale or wherever the hell he came out of. That was a really cool story. 3 for 45, 28 guaranteed. Does Foye Oluokun's agent get agent of the year for this? Because, oh my God.
I mean,
Christian Kirk, 4 for 72. Look, Christian Kirk had a nice couple of weeks for me in fantasy, but are we for real
84
here?
84 with incentives. Christian Kirk contract. So a couple nice nuggets here. Oluokun, Oluokun was priced at $15 million by a number of teams I talked to, and the main reason, and again, this is you just nod your head and smile, but the main reason is he led the NFL in tackles.
I'm sick.
And they got rid of Miles Jack for him, who's a better linebacker, I think. The Falcons, by the way, our Falcons drafted 3 linebackers in between 2016 and 2018 that all got $10 million or more on the market. Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell, and Foye Oluokun.
What I think is so funny about the Jaguars, and this is another thing that you get with your PFF subscription, which is the improvement index that our friend Kevin Cole does every single year. And what I think is so funny is they spent all of this money. They're just oozing money. And they're barely halfway to what the Broncos have improved by. They're barely eclipsing the Chargers, who have, picked up just a couple of players, but done, the quality of the players that they're picking up. You can buy quantity.
Yeah.
But are you buying quality?
If you divided by the amount of money spent, I would assume that they'd be in the bottom half of the league in this metric. The other thing that Christian Kirk is, so there's a couple of what I consider showstoppers right now that are happening.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk, the announcement of his deal basically shut down the wide receiver market, right? Yep. Because the only thing that came after was not Justin Gage. Russell Gage was $10 million a year. And then the Jags took Zay Jones for $10 million a year. Other than that, the Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the Allen Robinson, the Juju Smith-Schuster, the Odell Beckham Jr., the Jarvis Landrys, Devontae Adams, all got stopped in their tracks because this thing reset the wide receiver market. It's almost
by this metric, Devontae Adams is worth $75 million a year.
Have you seen the movie Molly's Game?
Yeah.
So it's the bad Brad scene. Where the guy who doesn't know how to play poker plays a confident, terrible hand, and it fucks up the whole table.
Everyone's on tilt.
yeah. So that's what the Jaguars are doing here. But that's interesting.
Okay.
Deshaun Watson is also stopping the market right now. There's a number of things, the Teron Armstead thing, the Baker Mayfield thing, even to a certain extent, the Carson Wentz, Kirk Cousins, like all those guys, like that was all the Watson thing kind of made that market less frictionless than it could have been. And we're still dealing with that right now.
You know what's funny is it took you this long to get to what I expected to be the worst signing in your mind, which was your buddy Kirk Cousins. You were absolutely going through it. Now, let me be clear. A Kansas City Chiefs fan, according to him, okay? But we've talked about this a bunch. If you're new to this podcast, if you're a new member to the syndicate, let me explain something very important about Eric. Eric is both a Minnesota Vikings fan.
I grew up rooting for the Vikings, yes.
And a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And the way that I will describe it is he once was in a relationship with the Minnesota Vikings, a very passionate relationship with the Minnesota Vikings. They're no longer together, except that they always think about each other. And they can't stop thinking about each other. And they must comment on it on Twitter all the freaking time. So to see you going through, as a Chiefs fan, the Kirk Cousins extension, it was really something.
I told you I was not going to talk about it. I told you.
Well, we're going to talk about it.
Well, to me, like, okay.
What do you make of it?
Okay, so here's the thing. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is the first
friend of the podcast,
first analytics GM in the league. I would very much like for him to succeed for a number of reasons. I think it's good. I think it would be great for the game. He's also a good person. I would like for him to have success in Minnesota. I also think that there are forces, that are difficult to deal with, which is, and there have been reports of this. I'm not going to necessarily say they're true, but that ownership preferred Cousins to another option. And so there are things that he has to deal with. Now, the question I have is,
what were the other options?
So reportedly reportedly there was a trade possibly in place with Cleveland, with Mayfield and a couple of high picks. I've heard reportedly that there was, that Kirk's camp, there was some expectation that he could move. The problem with this is, like, to me, it has nothing to do with the Vikings. It has nothing to do with Kirk. I actually think Kirk is like one of the best businessmen in the history of professional sports. The problem is just like a misunderstanding of.
I'm going to push back on that. I think he got lucky.
Yeah, but look, luck. Like, we've all gotten lucky. Like, I'm lucky to be your podcast partner, but I press that edge every single day.
Thank you.
Okay, so the thing is, it's very difficult for me. And look, I was proven wrong about Stafford. I think you can take a quarterback like Cousins or Stafford and put him on a ready-made team, and for it not to be the worst gamble in the world, right? We saw that with Cousins when first went on Minnesota. That failed spectacularly, but we saw it with the Rams, and that won a Super Bowl. Flags fly forever. I think Stafford is also what proves the other side of this, which is you cannot build a team from scratch around a quarterback like Kirk or like Stafford or like Tannehill who's making a veteran deal. I just don't think there's enough slack to build a team from not being very good, like Vegas too. Yeah. And that's where I'm worried, because again, like, I would like to see that regime succeed because of what it represents and also the people involved. I just have a very hard time seeing it succeed given this decision here, given this decision here, even if it's just delaying the inevitable for a couple years. Don't you? I mean, do you agree with that? It's very hard to win consistently around a quarterback who's not elite, who's making veteran money.
I mean, we just talked about Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes and the barriers that their teams
under, and they're elite.
That their teams have to winning, right? And look at the Packers. The Packers are a great example of this. The Packers are freaking out trying to figure out how they're going to pay all of these players.
Right.
And they're going to pay Aaron Rodgers an obscene amount of money, and this is where we bring the Brady thing into it.
Yeah.
Brady's going to make $20 million next year.
After they restructure him, yeah.
That money matters. It's not baseball. And this is the tough thing. This is how I believe it went down in Minnesota. and again, I have no inside information. I'm putting myself in the position of ownership and trying to really think about that the way they view things. You go, hey, and everyone knows this about sports, by the way, in football. Most of the decisions are the GM's call. The quarterback, that goes to the owner. Okay?
It's very much
there's no doubt about it. Look at the Cowboys. Everything goes to the owner, but like, it doesn't matter where you are. Quarterback, it comes to the owner. Who met with Deshaun Watson? The owners did. Okay?
He's part of the Illuminati with the owner, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. So,
especially Kirk at $230 million.
So here's the thing. You're sitting there as an owner, and you go, I've just brought in a new GM, a new head coach, and here's the option on the table. Let's say it's Baker Mayfield and a couple of high picks. The periphery around Baker Mayfield is not positive. And you bring him in, and that passionate fan base goes, oh my God, this guy stinks. He doesn't have done a great job of winning over fan bases with some of his actions. And certainly the OBJ thing colors him really poorly in the context of last year. And as an owner, you go, you know what? That's not worth it for me. And I think one of the really challenging things for owners to do, and actually it's something that Chris Collinsworth, our owner, does a really great job of, is empowering people to make decisions, right? And to give them the opportunity to, to win and lose and learn from it and not feel like the world is going to come crashing down. And that's something that isn't that common. And I just think that's what happened in this situation. Now, does that mean that this is the worst thing to ever happen to the Minnesota Vikings? No. Is the extension for 4 years? No, right? So I would say that there's a way for this to be a win for Kwesi in that, look, he gets it. He's a businessman as well. As much as he is an analytics-minded GM, he also understands the business of it, spent time on Wall Street and gets that. Like, you still have to play the game off the field as well.
Yeah, I think that the most frustrating thing for this is somebody who would like to see the team succeed and would like to see the regime succeed.
Yeah, even though you're a Chiefs fan, to be clear.
I am a Chiefs fan, but I would like to see this team succeed. Is the essentially what they did is say, like, it's like there is something structurally wrong with the construction of the team, right?
Yep.
And it's almost even funnier now that they extended Kirk Cousins 2 years ago. Rick Spielman said so they could pay Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce, 3 years, $27 million, is the biggest outside free agent they've ever signed in the Cousins regime. They just cut Michael Pierce so they could sign another defensive tackle, Harrison Phillips. The thing that I don't like necessarily about what's happening is it feels like they just took out two guys that they thought sucked at their jobs and put in two guys that they think are good at their jobs with the same sort of underlying structure and said that should be enough. Whereas no one went to look at the underlying structure of what was happening. You know what I'm saying? It would be like, if we had a management structure at work that was terrible and it was hurting all of us and they just fired all of us and put new people in. I don't necessarily think that would have, like, they might have like an epsilon effect, but it's not going to have like true big, because this team has been mediocre for basically my entire life. And that, and not bad, but mediocre. And, they're up against a Green Bay Packers team that's won 13 games for 3 straight years. Like, there needs to be regime shifts for them to compete in that division. And instead, it feels like they just want to be a better version of who they've always been, which I just don't think is a sustainable way to win.
It's a sustainable way to improve your life. That's what's so funny. It's like, I just wake up every morning trying to be a little better than I was the day before,
Yeah. That's like switching from like Popeyes to Chick-fil-A or something like that. It's like it's the same structure. Maybe one's like 2% healthier, but it's still bad.
Someone asked, now we're getting sidetracked here. Someone asked me about, they're like, hey, I listened to the podcast, member of the syndicate.
Yeah, somebody messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm a member of the syndicate. How do I break into sports?
Member of the syndicate, David Donovan, who mentioned to me, is like, hey, and he's a member of our company. Yeah. So it's not like I'm getting phone calls from members of the syndicate every day. But he was like, yo, I hear you talk about eating all this, like these ridiculous meals. And he's like, I just want to like try and find out like what are you doing because you're not like 400 pounds. And even though I'm not in a particularly great shape right now,
stop.
What I thought about was this. I mean, and I don't have any secret. I just like never eat out unless I'm eating a good meal.
Right.
And I thought about this. I haven't had like a meal delivered, like DoorDash, Postmates, any of that stuff. And it dawned on me that that's like something that's normal for a lot of people. And
yeah.
Is that something that you do?
Dude, I actually today, this sounds bad, but like if we're running late with the kids and stuff, we'll have like my wife and I will like have, this sounds first world problems. You can make fun of me for all you want. We'll have like coffee delivered to the house. Like if we're literally out of coffee and I'm like trying not to die.
That's a thing?
Yeah. Like there's a Tim Hortons like 6 miles away from my house. Wow. And like, I hate to be like Mr. Economist here. I'll play one on TV, but like with gas prices the way they are, there's actually a little edge there. And they're going to laugh in there. But anyway,
there's
so like
an edge to ordering coffee from Postmates or wherever.
Well, guys, if gas is up, I mean, carry the 66% over the last year, but DoorDash rates are not up.
You mean instead of driving your car to get gas? How about being a normal human being and ordering it on Amazon?
Sure. I'm just saying if we're out of coffee, we'll order like.
How do you end up out of coffee?
I don't know. I mean,
if I'm ever close to being out of coffee,
my dad's a member of the syndicate, and he
there are coffee subscriptions, by the way.
I have not gotten there yet, but like
now I got a gift for you.
I got to rip on my dad. My dad's a member of the syndicate. He listens. Growing up, my dad my dad was a Sam's Club like buyer of bulk.
Okay.
And like
you're never out of anything.
I was never out of anything, but it always just like kind of drove me insane that the whole house is full of like a lot of stuff. And so I'm very much like the other way, I guess, where I just like buy what I need. And unfortunately, in times like now where like I don't like since the pandemic, I like don't drive a lot of places. Yeah. I bought a rower for my house so I don't even go to the gym. And like, but in certain cases you get in a pinch and you're like, all right, DoorDash. But like, so the story goes today my DoorDash account got like suspended for suspicious activity.
Oh no.
And so I'm like freaking out. I'm looking at my credit card statement. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I call them.
No wonder you weren't efficient today at work.
And so I call them and I look and I'm like, can you tell me like what the suspicious activity was? And they're like, no, we'll just reinstate your account. I'm like, okay, but like, what is happening?
I'm actually concerned.
I'm actually like concerned about this. Like, what did I? And it was kind of crazy. They're like,
you didn't figure it out,
sir. You're a sociopath. You order coffee.
Yeah,
now, I don't.
Worse. I mean,
no, they didn't tell me. They said
so. There's someone out there just
the email said that they deactivated my account in error. Yeah,
that happens a lot.
Right? Who's sitting there? And
by the way, you're running a really shitty company if errors are causing people's account to deactivate so they can't spend money. That's not good. That's not great for you.
I'm like, did somebody like
shame on you for ordering coffee from DoorDash? Can you imagine being a person that is delivering food and being like, I'm delivering this slob coffee? Come on. I'm getting you a coffee subscription. It's so easy. You just figure out how long it takes you to go through one, can of coffee, and then you have it.
Here's the problem, George. Growing up, I was extremely neat and extremely
organized,
type A, and it almost drove me crazy. I'm like almost the exact opposite of how I grew up, and actually, it's delightful. Every once in a while, I get in a pinch, but you know what? I can just order coffee. I'm like I grew up in the perfect time, George.
You know what? And this makes me wonder how Manscaped can help you in your life, given the way that your life has turned around here. If you are looking to be more type A and really clean and organized everywhere that it counts,
emphasis on clean.
May I recommend, as a user of them myself, Manscaped. They've launched their ultra premium collection. Believe it or not, it's for your not so private parts. Yes, I'm talking about the hair that's on top of your head, you sicko. Your mind goes straight to
I thought you were going to say not so private parts, but They're getting their money's worth.
Go to manscaped.com. Get 20% off with promo code PFF. I'll let you know what I use. I use the Lawnmower 4.0. I've talked about it a million times on this podcast because I continue to use it and it continues to work. The battery lasts forever. It doesn't cut you, and you can travel with it easily. They also have 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, because if you're buying shampoo and conditioner separately, you're a complete fool. A hydrating body moisturizer, because if your body moisturizer doesn't hydrate, like, what are you doing? Deodorant, because yes, you need it. And then lip balm.
Oh,
and this is important. This is a PSA to everybody out there. Remember the syndicate. When you're going to Vegas, when you're planning your Vegas trip, bring lip balm. Okay? It's dry out there. Why do I lose my voice every time I go to Vegas? Because the air is freaking dry. It's not because I'm screaming at the top of my lungs in the club. Don't worry. I don't go to those type of clubs. You know that. 20% off, free shipping, promo code PFF. Okay. We are going to talk futures quickly here. Where would you like to start in the futures market? We're looking at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. We'll compare some of these across. Do you want to start with some division futures?
Let's look at it. So I think here's the thing. Shame works, okay? Mm-hmm. So in the AFC North, the Bengals and the Ravens are both plus 175. That did not open that way.
Nope.
The Browns are plus 330. The Steelers are plus 650.
What do you think about the Trubisky move there from the Steelers?
I think it's fine. Trubisky's going to be okay. But here's the thing. I'll say this about Trubisky. Very smart man. Trubisky went to the Buffalo Bills, who everybody believes has a clue, and let their reputation take him further than his could ever. Good for him.
Mitch Trubisky did nothing, and it massively helped because Matt Nagy was bad and Josh Allen is a rocket for an arm, and the Bills are great.
Mitch Trubisky took
the idea that Mitch Trubisky is good because Josh Allen is amazing blows my mind.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. I think he's smart for a reason you didn't mention. You know where he went? The Steelers.
Yeah, a very loyal
franchise. Will be impossible. No, this is why. He's going to, no matter what he does, he's going to be an upgrade.
He's going to be better than
It can't be worse.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the film from last year? It was not particularly pretty.
He was horrendous.
He went to a team. Mitch Trubisky, I mean, I don't know the guy. This was an incredible coup for him. Is going to a team that consistently performs well. Mike Tomlin consistently gets wins out of that team. Has a really good defense, a passionate fan base, has talented receivers, I might add, and he's replacing a quarterback that sucked. I'm going to say this right now. As I look at the AFC North Division, I'm not betting on the Cleveland Browns. I'm not. Even with the Watson steam, I can't see Deshaun Watson wanting to go to Cleveland. I just can't. Not with an offer from the Saints, not with an offer from the Falcons on the table. Both areas that are, where he's from. So I don't see that happening. And the Baker Mayfield thing, clearly a shit show. Are they going to trade for Jimmy G? Like, who the hell knows? That seems like a disaster.
Jimmy G fluttering passes in Cleveland, Ohio
in
December.
Yeah, it ain't happening.
Feels a little bit bad.
The Ravens, we've talked about a bunch. I do not hate the Steelers at plus 650.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. And here's the other thing. Did you see that FanDuel posted the number 2 overall pick odds?
Oh.
The favorites to be the second overall pick in the NFL draft at plus 3. Oh, it's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, both of them are plus 380. They were plus 340 yesterday.
These are different than DraftKings, by the way.
Malik Willis, Kyle Hamilton.
So
Malik Willis is going in the top 10.
So on DraftKings, it's Kyle Hamilton plus 350, Aiden Hutchinson 4-1, Trayvon Walker is 5-1, and Malik Willis is plus 550.
Yeah. So by the way, if you want to get your muscles moving on betting and you want to pick off some numbers, the draft is perfect because you're never going to get a situation in a side or total or a money line where one book's offering you plus 550 and the other book's offering you plus 380. And I know the limits are a little low. I know the markets aren't sharp, but that is an interesting thing. Malik Willis, if he gets past the Lions at 2, is going to be a Steeler in my opinion. I think the Steelers are going to try because here's the thing, the Mitch Trubisky signing reminds me of when the Bears signed Mike Glennon and then that was 3 years. It was like 3
I
years.
disagree. I think that legitimately in the NFL, people think, hey, look, this was a guy that was Mike Glennon was not the number 2 overall pick, right? Hey, he's the number 2 overall pick. Matt Nagy sucked. Clearly, this guy wasn't utilized to the best of his ability. He's got a little mobility. He's over there learning from Josh Allen. I heard that they sleep in the same hyperbaric chamber, and some of that arm talent's been going over to Mitch Trubisky. And I legitimately think that this move to me spelled for the Steelers, we're not going to overspend on a quarterback in the draft. To me, this said we might draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round because we want Mitch Trubisky to have the full confidence that he can succeed. Now, how this could very well go is how Russell Wilson in Seattle went, where, so-and-so gets drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round, comes in and beats the brakes off Mitchell Trubisky, and everyone laughs.
Here's the only rebuttal I'll have. Trubisky was 2 years, $14 million.
Yeah.
Glennon was 3 years, $45 million, $18 million year 1.
Well, sure. I get from the contract perspective. I'm talking about
do they think
the real perception?
And the Steelers have 3 quarterbacks. 2 of them are 1st round picks.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Mason Rudolph, 3rd round pick. So maybe that's not in the cards. But I think my strong opinion, which is weakly held, is that the Steelers are going to move from 20 to 8 and take Malik Willis. Now, Malik Willis, because I think that the trajectory has been the same as Mahomes in 2017, which was, at the whole start of all of this, everybody's like, oh, Malik Willis, pretty good prospect, might be a bottom half of 1st round guy. That's kind of how Mahomes was, right? Everybody linked the Chiefs to Mahomes early on because the Chiefs picked 27th. Mm-hmm. And then, combine happens, interviews happen. Everybody's like, oh, he's pretty freaking good. And, then the Chiefs had to go all the way up to 10 to get Mahomes.
Yep.
The Steelers have been linked to Willis, right, since the Senior Bowl when Tomlin got a look at him. And it's kind of at 20, he should be there. And, Steelers just moved up from 20 to 10 to get Devin Bush, a man they're just replacing now or complimenting now with Myles Jack, who they just signed during the show. I think Malik Willis, but then Malik Willis can sit for a year behind, Trubisky the same way that Trubisky sat behind Mike Glennon for 4 games because Mike Glennon was cheeks.
We've gotten privilege mentioned on the podcast and now cheeks. I'll let you pick the division to go to next, while I remind everyone that if you want to bet on these things, go to DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and the NBA. There's a lot of NBA basketball to bet on right now. I'd be lying to you if I don't frequently turn on the television in the middle of an NBA game while I'm eating dinner in the 30 minutes before I start working again. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to let it fly. And here's the shitty thing, Eric. I'm never awake to see whether the bet hits or not. But you can go to DraftKings and use promo code PFF. And when you make a deposit as a new customer, you can get $1 that you bet on any NBA team. And if they win, you will then get $150 in free bets. And then what you do is you go put that on draft props and you profit. All you have to do is listen to this, and Eric will just feed you opportunities to pick off good numbers on draft props. If sports betting is not legal in your state because they are a laggard, it's okay too. DraftKings daily fantasy basketball contests offer huge cash prizes for you every single night. I'm not that big of a degenerate sicko, but maybe you are. And if you are, I commend you for it. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, promo code PFF, just $1 on any NBA team. They win $150 in free bets. For you, that's promo code PFF. 21 and over, minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Next division.
All right, here's one that I want your opinion on because I feel like this is,
I'm ready. I have so many.
The NFC East, Dallas minus 115.
We were gonna go.
Philadelphia 3-1. Washington football team 4. They're always going to be Washington football team to me. 4-1.
They have to earn the commander's name. You can't walk in and be like, I'm the commander. No. That's not how this works. Yeah. Okay. I know that they took pictures of Carson Wentz in a Letterman jacket. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That is not a great look.
No.
Not how you become a commander.
The New York Football Giants 7-1.
Okay.
So on one hand,
yeah,
I look at the Cowboys and I think,
over here.
How the fuck are they only basically even money to win the division.
Yep. And on the other hand,
everything else.
yes, that is where I'm at with this. I so badly want a team in this division to separate themselves. Now, let me tell you why. There's an obvious one. And here's my problem. It's too obvious. You know when it's like you see this every week. You look at the board and you go, man, that's an obvious bet. Mm-hmm. And then your model comes back and says, not an obvious bet. And you're like, okay, there's a reason I thought it was an obvious bet. I'm an idiot. The Eagles are the obvious bet here, where it's like the Cowboys had to get rid of Amari Cooper. There are so many reasons why you'd be a little hesitant about Mike McCarthy when the decision-making. Dak looked like shit towards the end of the year. They have to get rid of Lyle Collins. That offensive line is not going to be as good. But everyone is on the Eagles. Everyone likes Sirianni. Everyone likes Jalen Hurts. Everyone likes Devontae Smith. But I have a hard time. I mean, I have no faith in the Commanders. I'm sorry. I have zero. The Washington Commanders could be 10-1. I'm not betting on them.
Yeah, I like the Giants.
Yeah, like I will bet the Giants where I'll bet them. The challenge for me with the Giants is they just aren't very good, and they have draft capital in this draft, but I don't know that there's a Jamar Chase out here for Daniel Jones, if you see what I'm saying.
I agree with that a little bit.
Their
but
team is not good.
They don't need to be good. That's the point. Like, I think if the
the Cowboys and the Eagles have talent.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying
the Giants don't really have talent.
At 7-1, I don't need them. Look. Let me
tell me the narrative. Tell me the story.
Okay.
How did the New York Football Giants win this division?
Okay. All right.
Sing me this
song.
Let's
look at this offensive line for a second.
Please.
You have Andrew Thomas, one of the most improved players in the NFL last year at left tackle.
Okay.
You have Matt Neal Peart.
He improved, but how good was he?
78.9 grade. He was good last year. You have Matt Neal Peart at right tackle. Mm-hmm. John Feliciano, who they just signed. Mark Lewinsky, who they just signed. So two veteran interior guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't fuck it up, guys, on the inside.
Got to build a pathway for Saquon to get 3 yards.
Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton are all NFL pass catchers. All of them. You have Daniel Jones, who has always graded better than the outputs.
That's
and
fair.
Know why that is? Because
that's fair, because the outputs suck.
Well, not.
That's why.
I mean, look, we're going to get a very, very, very good look into how bad Jason Garrett was, right?
Right. That's a good point.
Garrett.
There's a lot of positive regression there.
Jason Garrett and Joe Judge.
I'm sold. Is the syndicate going in on the Giants 7-1?
And then look at the defense. Just humor me for a second. Xavier McKinney is a top pick out of Alabama. He's a good football player. Dory Jackson's a good football player who had a pretty good season last year. Mm-hmm. James Bradbury. Now, they might let go of him, but he's a good corner. Blake Martinez has played well for them. He didn't play the greatest last year. Leonard Williams is a stud. Dexter Lawrence is a stud. Azeez Ojulari is a guy with some pedigree. And then you're picking you're picking 2 times in the top 10 in a draft that has edges, which you need, and offensive linemen, which you could piece together. The defense, I think, Patrick Graham was good, and they lose him. I think that's an issue. And they lose. They get Logan Ryan. They're going to lose your Bill Peppers, I believe, in free agency, or maybe they cut him. But the defense was never the issue there. They had talent, mm-hmm. and they played largely well, and they can supplement that now. This, the 2022 Giants, to me, are the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, no. There you have it. Okay, I wanted to quickly hit a couple of other divisions that I am interested in. So, I was going to ask you about this one. The NFC West. The Los Angeles Rams, plus 160. San Francisco 49ers, plus 185. Arizona Cardinals are plus 310, and the Seahawks are 9-1. Now, a couple of questions for you. The first is, what the hell is happening with Jimmy G?
Dude, did you see my tweet?
No.
You remember Jim Druckenmiller?
Yeah. Huh.
Jim Druckenmiller started 1 game.
Yeah.
First round pick for the Niners.
Yeah.
At least Trey Lance got 2 starts. But
There's no way, right? Is that what this is setting up for? Because part of me goes, look, until Deshaun Watson moves, fuck him. No other quarterback's going to move, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, there's like no steam. And the thing with Watson is that he's not going to the Colts. And so I would expect to hear a little bit more around Jimmy G to the Colts, to be honest with you. Because if it's not the Colts,
could be Cleveland.
It
could be
Cleveland.
Can't be Seattle because that's interdivision. Although
is Cleveland really like, oh yeah, we're going to bring in Jimmy G to be an upgrade over Baker Mayfield?
Jimmy G would be an upgrade over Baker.
Okay, sure, I get that, but like not that dramatically.
No, and actually Baker at his peak is better than Jimmy at his peak. It's just that
you stop.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm thinking, if they stick with Jimmy G, they have a lot of explaining to do. And look, look. On one hand, you should not
let plus 185 them sticking with Jimmy G, or is that Trey Lance?
It's got to be Trey Lance.
Is that fair?
It should be longer with Trey Lance,
right?
Given what we know, the Rams have only gotten longer. They opened at 150. It's 160 now. The Seahawks aren't making that number go down.
No.
The Cardinals at plus 310. I mean, the Cardinals. Like let's take the Cardinals are the worst, and I'm confident in saying this. The Cardinals are the worst team coming off an 11-6 season in NFL history.
Yeah, I agree. Ramsplaining.
The joke.
What? Yeah, I get it.
Okay,
it was well done. I just have been wanting to make this point. I think the Rams at plus 160 are an auto bet. The Niners, and I'm a Niners fan, but I love Kyle Shanahan. I love that team. I'm excited about him. There is way too much variance with Trey Lance to be like, oh yeah, they should be plus 185. The Cardinals have a lot of things going on, right? They're not going to have Chandler Jones back in all likelihood. Now, the interesting thing with the Rams is I would have expected this number to go down, and here's why. At the beginning of free agency, it seemed like Von Miller was going to be on his way out. But now
you might.
The Broncos no longer as viable a destination with Randy Gregory. The Chargers just traded for Khalil Mack. Von Miller isn't out here trying to go play for some team that's trying to go and win 8 games. He wants to try and win a Super Bowl. And by the way, their path to winning a Super Bowl just got a little bit better. Why? Because Russell Wilson went from that division to the other.
I mean,
so
if you look at the NFC, there are 3 teams that are good. Like 3 teams that are good.
Yep. It's the Rams, the Packers, and the Buccaneers.
and the Buccaneers got worse. The Packers got worse. You're right? All 3 of those teams got worse.
Yep.
I mean, the Rams are probably better. Stafford in year 2 of this regime and all that stuff. But the tricky thing here, I want to circle this back broadly about the whole division. The whole division plays the AFC West. Mm-hmm. So the NFC West plays the AFC West.
Yep.
And the NFC South. So, right? Yep. Yes, the NFC South. So win totals in that division, you probably want to bet under on like the Niners and the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Maybe not the Rams, because if the Rams clean everybody up, they could win 12 games or so. But that's for both the AFC West and the NFC West. Like that cross-divisional situation might make win totals lower than you think for both of those divisions. But I agree with you. The thing with the Niners is you don't want to be tethered to sunk costs. Mm-hmm. But you also don't want to is Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, the whole don't be tethered to sunk cost thing is choosing Aaron Rodgers over moving on with Jordan Love, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. That's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
It's Jimmy G.
Yeah, I don't know. And
I think Jimmy G's a winner. I actually don't mind him.
Are there any other teams that we're not thinking about other than the Colts and the Browns at this point?
Maybe Houston.
They seem, if they don't
Davis
want
Mills,
Baker, then
Houston could be. Colts, yeah.
What about the loser of
the Giants?
Watson?
The Giants even moved on backup quarterback to Tyrod Taylor. Like they're basically going with Jones and Taylor.
The interesting ones to me, maybe the most interesting one to me are the Saints if they don't get Watson.
Yeah. The Saints might try because, like, I don't think Dennis Allen was a coach, like a rebuild coach.
Yeah.
I think he was just like a continuate. Oh, by the way, Ian Rappaport just report Von Miller to the Bills.
Oh, wow.
That's a house. Holy bucket.
Wow.
The whole AFC is not fucking around.
Wow. Okay, so let me retract that now. Let's look at the AFC East. Bills are the biggest favorite in any division, yes. They are now minus 225. Patriots plus 350. Dolphins plus 650. Jets plus 220. Let me just say this. Von Miller's going to be great next year. Okay, the combination, the statues that are Tua, Mac Jones, and whatever the hell happens with Zach Wilson, it's going to be a great year for Von Miller. That's a nice move by the Bills.
I bet you it's good money too. I bet you it's not breaking the bank money, but like this is, and people will say, oh, you know, people will say everything about everything, but here's the thing: the Bills. This is like, I guarantee you, the Bills didn't bend over backwards to make this deal.
By the way, best available free agents remaining on PFF.com. Von Miller was number 2. Teron Armstead. Still out there.
On Deshaun Watson.
Still out there. Allen Robinson, Bobby Wagner, Jadeveon Clowney, Tyrann Mathieu, OBJ.
Stephon Gilmore.
So go to PFF, check out all of those players, and make sure you're staying up to date when they get signed. Should we close out the little ball sack?
Yeah, I just look. We're not. It's abbreviated ball sack segment
because we do them on Sundays.
JJ Redick at JJ_Redick, an NBA legend, college basketball legend too.
College basketball legend, yeah.
Ballsack Sports is the greatest thing to happen to NBA Twitter. Big fan here. Big fan at Ballsack Sports. He even added Ballsack Sports.
They're on the come up.
Do you think that they? I wonder if is this like a way to do it? If you are trying to be a media company, is to like be the Onion, and then like do they bait and switch?
No.
Do they get to some point where they're just like, look, we've already gotten this big ass following, right? Because that's half the battle is getting a following. Get this big following, and then instead of being the Onions, they just want to be.
Von Miller got 6 years, $120 million.
So that's less than market rate, right?
It's a good deal for him.
Yeah, it's a good deal for him.
Yeah.
Bills must have to make them. They must have to cut Cole Beasley or something because they're at only 8. But maybe they structured it in a certain way. Good for them.
That's
good for them.
And by the way, deserved for Von Miller, who people thought, oh, this guy's washed.
He's washed, yeah.
Dude dominated last year.
Dude, whoever plays right tackle for the Chiefs, buckle up. Buckle up.
The Chiefs fan comes out.
You have Khalil Mack. You have Randy Gregory. You have Von Miller. You have Max Crosby.
Joey Bosa.
Joey. Yeah. Like you're. Is there a week off?
No, not in this league. It's a week-to-week league, Eric. You know this. That was our podcast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We love you all. JJ Redick, new member of the syndicate. Welcome. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you all on Sunday night. Peace.